Matheny, and I am the Senior Coordinator of Membership Engagement at BC Soccer. So thank you for coming to our third webinar of 2024 membership webinar series. This one is focusing on club licensing and soccer development. So joining us to speak today, I have Lucas Castro, the Club Engagement Coordinator of BC Soccer, and Chris Cerrone, the Director of Soccer Development here at BC Soccer. So to get started, I will pass it on to Lucas, who will be presenting on club licensing. Just one quick thing, if you have any questions that come up throughout the presentation and you want to type them out, feel free to use the Q&A, and then there will also be a little bit of time for questions at the end of each presenter. So I'll pass it on to you, Lucas.
Thank you, Soleil. Hi, everyone. Let me just share my first slide here. Are you all able to see the beginning of my presentation now? Well, I hope so. I see Soleil confirming with her head. Okay, so hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. As Soleil said, my name is Lucas Castro. I am the Club Engagement Coordinator for BC Soccer, and I'm going to be presenting on the club licensing program with the subtitle of Beyond the Paperwork. And why Beyond the Paperwork? Well, it's just because my goal today is that we are all able to see the club licensing program from a different perspective, hopefully. We are able to see it as a starting point for something beyond the program itself. And by that, I mean that hopefully the program will provide BC Soccer with a better understanding about the particularities of each club, district, and region, and will lead to a more collaborative and effective support of the soccer sport in the province from our part. So just to, what does it say? Okay. Just to briefly introduce myself a little bit better, I am from Brazil. I grew up in São Paulo. I was a journalist, more specifically a sports journalist in Brazil. And I moved to Canada in 2017 with my wife to study administration and hopefully get into the sport management sector. I was with Field Hockey BC for 4 years before joining BC Soccer. I was a member services and communications coordinator for Field Hockey BC. And then I moved to BC Soccer last August. So we're still in the provincial body sphere, specter. And but now I'm glad that I'm able to work with the sport that I actually love and grew up playing. I played mostly futsal than soccer, but still I followed soccer. I covered soccer as a journalist before, so I'm glad that now I'm able to work with soccer. So to get started, a quick overview of the club licensing. So what is the club licensing? And I know most of you probably already know what it is. In the practical sense, the club licensing is an online application process for clubs that run any youth programming, and they access that application process through the CLS, which is the club licensing software. And in there, they will upload documentation and information, and then the license will be granted. In a practical sense, that is what the club licensing is. But like I said, I hope that we are able to see it as something more than the online application process. We're able to see it as a guide towards best principles for organizational development. And this has been, this is like a path that has been built by Canada Soccer for youth clubs to follow. And the club licensing program will serve as a guide in this path. Here I have outlined some of the objectives of this program, the club licensing program. This is to have a framework to increase the quality of soccer programs. This framework has been developed with the required policies and standards to make the sport more safe, more diverse, more inclusive, more accessible. And if we are able to improve on those fronts, then the sport can grow because we would be able to reach people that we haven't been able to reach before. And the underlying philosophy behind the club licensing for this whole initiative is that we take high standards and turn them into best principles. So the standards have been set, but they don't really mean a lot unless they are put into action, unless they turn into principles that the clubs are able and willing to follow, right? So moving forward, regarding the club licensing and district affiliation, I want to briefly mention that because these are two separate processes, but they are both mandatory processes for clubs to be sanctioned by BC Soccer. Therefore, a club that don't have a license is not considered sanctioned by BC Soccer, even if they have completed their affiliation with district. Of course, since we are still in the first phase of getting clubs through this new licensing program, we are still in this in-between stage where a lot of clubs are still working towards completing their license for the first time, or at least completing their license for the first time in this new software or this new portal. So for now, we are still considering clubs to be sanctioned as long as they are engaged with the licensing program, even if they haven't finished the application itself. With that said, for new clubs, we hope to avoid delays for clubs to start operating and being sanctioned and having access to competitions. So we hope that both processes, the district affiliation and the club licensing, happen in parallel. Currently, we have been simply asking districts to direct clubs to us, to me more specifically, so I can work on their license application while they are finalizing their district affiliation. So they can hopefully finish at the same time. But in the future, I will reach out to every district. We understand that each district have their own timelines. So we will try to see how to better fit the club licensing process in the way that each district operates. But again, that will come in the future once we have gone through this first phase of getting every club in BC through the club licensing process. So I'm going to read a little bit about the club licensing, the renewal process. So for clubs that already hold the license, their license will expire 2 years after the year when the license was granted. So for example, here, licenses granted in 2023 will expire on December 30th of 2025, regardless if they were granted in January of 2023 or November of 2023. And also, as another example, licenses granted in 2024, regardless of if they were granted in the beginning or the end of 2024, they will expire on December 30th of 2026. Eventually, the idea is that every club will renew their license during the second half of the year when their license expires. So that's the idea moving forward. Regarding the club license levels, Quality Soccer Provider, QSP, Member Association Level 1, MA, also called MA1, Member Association Level 2, also called MA2, and National Youth Club License, the 4 different levels. It is important to understand that even though we call them levels, they are not necessarily about the quality of our club or the quality of our programming. These levels are more a reflection of the reality of each club, at which level they operate in, and what is their main focus. For example, a club that holds a Quality Soccer Provider QSP license might be at a better situation or deliver better programming than a club that holds a MA1 or MA2. Because like I said, the license itself, it's about clubs understanding the level that they operate in and making the best of it. So, of course, there are different standards for each license. And these differences, they reflect an increase in complexity and professionalization of the club. But again, it's not necessarily a reflection on the quality of what the program delivers or what the club delivers, sorry. So I'm just going to quickly go over here some of the difference, just to briefly exemplify how they differ from each other. But there, of course, there are a lot more questions that are asked from each license application level. So quality soccer provider, QSP, is the minimum expectation for sanctioning clubs. And we just want to make sure that clubs provides a developmentally appropriate, safe, enjoyable, accessible, inclusive, and welcoming playing environments. For MA1, there's a higher expectation across all of those pillars in the administration, infrastructure, etc. And some of examples that can reflect this higher expectation is to have paid staff in different areas of the club, not just coaches or one admin, but other areas as well. And one tangible differentiation from QSP to MA1 is having a technical director that possesses a C license. And then you move up to MA2. These are aimed at organizations that are targeting development and performance streams, so higher level of programming and competition. And again, some of the tangible differentiations from the MA1 is a proper professionalized staff, an year-round programming, a technical lead or technical director with a B license, and a club that has an operational plan, a strategic plan. And then the National Youth Club license, I'm not going to speak too much about it, but it's the highest level, and it's required for clubs that want to access the BCSPL. The National Youth Club license is application process is reviewed by Canada Soccer directly with our support. That Canada Soccer handles most of it at this point. So again, moving a little bit beyond the paperwork, I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of being a sanctioned club, being a club that holds a license. So because I've been meeting with clubs across the province, and I noticed that a lot of these are not clear, or a lot of clubs were unaware of some of the benefits. So for starters, insurance coverage, I guess that everybody knows about that. So SPC Insurance is our broker. Game Day is our underwriter, sorry. And it provides liability insurance and sport accident insurance to our member associations, youth districts, adult leagues, the clubs that are affiliated with them, and the registered players and participants within them. Regarding the insurance provided by BC Soccer, like I said, we will have a webinar that will focus specifically on that and explain all the benefits of it. So I'll leave it at that for now. And another benefit of being a club licensed and sanctioned by BC Soccer is the club operating system, formerly called Stakeholder Calendar. A few of the clubs might know that from that previous name. But the club operating system, it's a tool aimed at mostly at club administrators. And like it says here, it's a guidance to run operations and communications. So access to that system is free for sanctioned clubs, and I will just simply contact me and I will give out the information for logging in. Districts can make use of it as well. And the club operating system is basically a resource hub for clubs to use. It is divided in, I believe, in weeks. So following like a 38-week season. Of course, clubs have different seasons. They might have a shorter season. They might have 2 seasons in a year. But it's just a way to organize the resources in there. And so in the first few weeks, you will be able to see resources that are relevant to that stage of the season, the beginning of the season. So maybe a communication template for calling out volunteers, or reaching out to coaches, or reaching out to parents. And towards the end of the season, you will find resources where, like, templates for a survey, for getting feedback from your members, or something like that. And also in there, you'll be able to find webinars and access to other materials that are relevant to a club, to the club in general. Like I said, I was a communications coordinator with Field Hockey BC, and I know how much time it takes to write a Facebook post, to write a communique, and even the simplest thing, or to build a survey, even the simplest thing can take a lot of time in that area. So this club operating system can be very beneficial, especially to clubs that are run by volunteers, and time is time to do everything is an obstacle. So this can help you out, I believe. So yeah, just if you're interested in using it, if you're a sanctioned club or district, just reach out to me and we can get you set up. Other benefit of being a sanctioned club is the scholarship program. The scholarship program is aimed at individuals that are pursuing post-secondary education and that for 3 or more years have played in a club that is licensed by BC Soccer and or participated in some other capacity as a referee, as a coach, or an administrator. The scholarship application is currently open until April 29th. So to see more information about that, just visit bcsoccer.net. In the top menu, go to membership, awards and scholarships, and then there will be able to download the scholarship procedures, which will provide the link to the form to start the application processes. And just quickly go over some of the other benefits of being a sanctioned club is having access to competitions. So participating and hosting BC Soccer competitions, sanctioned competitions, refereeing. So sanctioned clubs can host refereeing clinics and also have access to referees, because per policy, referees are not supposed to participate in unsanctioned activities. And also sanctioned clubs can host coaching courses. The club technical lead can, for instance, apply to become a new club learning facilitator and deliver the 4 grassroots workshops at the start: fundamentals, learn to train, and soccer for life. So if you want more information about the learning facilitator program, again, bcsoccer.net, top menu, education, click on learning facilitator program. And last but not least, another benefit that the clubs that are sanctioned by BC Soccer can take advantage of is the development grants program. These are up to $1,000 grants that are aimed at organizations, so not individuals, but organizations, clubs, districts, and other affiliated organizations. The main focus of this program is to help clubs to meet the kind of the Soccer's Guide to Accessibility and Inclusion and the club licensing standards. We have recently reorganized the grants program. So first of all, the clubs, they need to apply for a grant that for an event that hasn't taken place yet. And then we have these timelines here. So the application window is August 1st to May 31st of the following year. So a club or an organization can apply for an initiative at any point in between that August 1st and May 31st. Then from June 1st to July 31st is the reporting window, which means the clubs will then submit a reporting once the initiative has taken place, and we will review the report during that the time frame. And in August, there's a payment window, which is when the grants will be paid out to the clubs. Regarding the grants categories, so we have 5 categories currently. Accessibility category, which is a focus on all abilities or adaptive soccer in school programs, or non-traditional forms of soccer like futsal, walking soccer, co-ed. So these kinds of initiatives can be used to apply for grants. Diversity and inclusion category. These are regarding programs aimed at the underrepresented groups such as First Nations, low-income families, LGBTQ plus community. The equity category is aimed more specifically at the gender equity issues, so increasing the participation of female in the sport. And the grassroots development and the organizational grants categories, there's a little bit of overlap between them, but it's mostly their grassroots development is mostly focused on field things, and organizational is focused on the off the field side of things initiatives. So for instance, for grassroots developments, you would have you can apply for to offset the cost of hosting a festival or an on-field coaching workshop. And on the organizational category, you can apply for offsetting the cost of getting respecting sport codes for your coaches and volunteers, and other forms of educational and developmental initiatives for your staff, your board, your club members in general, or so your volunteers. So these are the grants categories. We have more information in the grants program page. And so again, bcsoccer.net, top menu, resources, grants program. There is a fairly long document called the grants programs guidelines that you can download from there. And you have examples of all the events and initiatives that have been approved and that have been used to supported by the grants program. So just okay. So this is just a quick go over the steps of the grant application process. So step 1, a club submits an application. I will review it. And this is the step 2. The review process is basically me going back and forward with the club if I feel that we need more information to approve the application. And once we are satisfied with it, then we will tell the club that the application has been approved. Then in between steps 3 and 4, the event will take place, hopefully, and come June, the club can the club can submit the report, which is also an online form. And then again, there's a review of the report. So I will go back and forth with the club if I feel that we need more information. And then once the report is accepted, in August, the payment will come to the club. I know it's $1,000, it's not a lot of money, but it's really helpful, especially for clubs that are trying to run new initiatives. And recently, we have created a club licensing page on our website. We had the page before, but we have developed it further. So bcsoccer.net resources club licensing. And this page will provide more resources and more information about the club licensing application, and will be really helpful for clubs that are going through this process, we hope. So the club licensing application is done through the club licensing software, which we call CLS. It is a website that was developed and is maintained by Canada Soccer. And this is where the clubs will log in to submit their information and upload the necessary documents. To get a login, just contact me and we will get it set up. And once a club administrator is logged into the system, you'll see the dashboard. The dashboard has 4 main categories: my organization, club licensing, review, and resources. My organization is basically a general information about your organization. Then under club licensing, you will see 6 steps, and that is where you'll see all the questions and where you need to provide answers or upload documents. The 6 steps are organization info, safety, accessibility and inclusion, technical, governance, and MA specific. I'll talk a little bit about them ahead. But then under club licensing, there is the review tab. The review tab is where you'll be able to see the grading of all the questions that you have answered. So grading goes from 1 to 3. 1 is red, 2 is yellow, and 3 is green. 1 in red meaning the answer was unsatisfactory, you need to correct it or update it or upload something. Yellow means is more like we have been using it more like a flag for something that is maybe not mandatory for clubs to fix right away. So it might not stop them from getting their license, but it is something that we have flagged for the future, something that needs to be worked on. And green is a satisfactory answer. So in that review tab, clubs will be able to see that, and then every time that they upload, update an answer or upload a new document, they will need to go into the review tab, scroll all the way down and click submit again, so I can see the changes that they have made. And Inside the CLS, there's also a resources tab that is provided, a lot of documents that is provided by Canada Soccer. And our application guide that I've been calling in our club licensing page on bcsoccer.net is more of a complementation of the resources provided by Canada Soccer in the system, because the documents provided by Canada Soccer, they are more broad in general, and our BC Soccer resources, they are more practical in a way, so they complement each other. But again, this is what you will find within the system. So in our page, the club licensing page on BC Soccer's website, we have provided, like I said, another set of resources that are more practical. So if you go into the FAQ and templates section of our page, we have divided them into the tabs that are found in the CLS system. So the first tab, organization info, is like the club simply need to answer some standard questions, but we have the first two templates that the clubs need to use for a couple of the questions, which are the coach and personnel template and the facilities template. The coach and personnel template is a file with you simply need to insert the names of your coaches, and a lot of information about them is asked in that template, but of course we don't need to answer all of them. For now, we've been asking clubs to submit at least their coaches, a list of their coaches and their CRC's information, because that has been mandatory for quite some time now. But moving forward, the idea is that we'll be able to work from that file, and we'll be able to track how your coaches have progressed. So if they get more certification, then that should be reflected in that coach and personnel template, and the coach and personnel file. I know that a lot of clubs have a lot of turnover from season to season about the coaches, so that file might not be the most up to date of the time. That's understandable. But for now, if a club can get a list of their coaches from the previous 2 seasons, for instance, if they don't have a list ready yet because the season might just beginning in the spring, that is already helpful. And then once you have to renew your license application, you have a more up-to-date file because you have been working on it for the past couple of years. So it's a good way of tracking coaches. And the facilities list template, it's also in a similar fashion, just some basic information about the facilities that you guys use, and just give us a better understanding of your situation. Then on the next tab called safety, that's the one that I feel like has been requiring more work from club administrators, because it asks a lot of policies. And a lot of policies that the clubs might not have. So creating these policies takes some time. Therefore, we have developed templates for each of those policies for clubs to use. And we hope that these templates will be helpful. Like, for instance, the code of conduct to protect children that is asked in the club licensing application. We have combined that with the code of ethics, and so it's a policy that's called Code of Ethics and Code of Conduct to protect children, and that's helpful for clubs, and they can use that for their coaches and staff and volunteers, and that will satisfy a few questions within CLS. So the policy itself, it's already like 90% ready, but clubs will need to insert some of their particular information. Because from a legal standpoint, it is important that the policy speaks to the club directly. So it is important that clubs are not using Canada Soccer's policy or BC Soccer's policy. So they have their own. So like I said, it's a Word document. It's easy to edit. So the clubs just need to download it, insert the information that is required from them in the areas that's asked. So I have highlighted them in the document, and it should be easy to get a policy ready to go. The guidelines for adults interacting with children in sport, I believe that one is a PDF because that one is not a policy. It's more of a resource that is asked that clubs share with their members. But then we also have the anti-bullying policy, the rule of two policy. Again, these are Word documents that is easy to edit, and the policy itself, most of the content is already there. It's just a matter of club inserting their particular information in it and getting it posted on their website or shared with their members. If a club doesn't have a website, they can use a Facebook group and have it posted there. And there's in the safety tab, it also asks for clubs to be a part of the responsible coaching movement pledge. This is just a link, a very simple form that the club administrator needs to fill out. And once that is done, just upload in the CLS a confirmation of that you have taken the pledge. You should receive a confirmation email, so that's accepted. In the accessibility and inclusion tab, we have also provided a DEI policy template for clubs to use. Moving forward in the technical tab, it's more about clubs making sure that they meet the long-term player development standards and Canada Soccer grassroots standards. The resources about that, both of those are available in the CLS resources page. Governance is again standard questions, making sure that the club is in good standing with the governing bodies. And I want to talk a little bit about the MA specific tab, which is not to be confused with the MA1 and MA2 licenses, because Canada Soccer has named it MA specific, meaning member association specific. So BC Soccer is a member association of Canada Soccer. So you can read that tab as BC Soccer specific. And in that tab, there's a few questions that we as BC Soccer ask from our clubs. So the first question is about providing, we want to make sure that the clubs share the BC Soccer technical resources. So that is available in the club licensing page that we have created on our website for clubs to download it. And the other one is a question about having a code of conduct that is aligned with BC Soccer. If you use the code of conduct template that we have provided for the safety tab that satisfies these questions. Then there's a question if the organization is a legal entity. For not-for-profit organizations, you just need to submit a letter of incorporation or other proof of legal status. For private organizations, you can provide a legally valid declaration outlining your business status. And then for the Constitution and bylaws and rules of regulations, of course, both for-profit and not-for-profit clubs need to submit that. Private organizations can submit, I believe it's called a notice of articles, which would be the equivalent for that question. So there's a lot of that is asked from the clubs, but again, how is BC Soccer approaching the club licensing program? And that is a way for me to conclude my presentation here, because I hope that we're all able to see that this is an opportunity. Let's say this is an opportunity for collaboration. It's an opportunity for BC Soccer to build relationships with the soccer community. It's an opportunity for us to increase our knowledge about our clubs and districts, and to ultimately be more strategic in the way that we support the sport by interacting with the clubs directly. I know that this hasn't happened often in the past. So the club licensing program offers that opportunity to us. We can learn more about your club's and district's environment, your particularities, your challenges. In that way, we hope to come up with initiatives that can be tailored to the needs of each community, and hopefully be more efficient in the way that we support the sport in the province. That's the main takeaway from this, and that's how BC Soccer has approached the club licensing program, and will continue to approach it moving forward. That's it for me for now. Any questions? Let me see here. in the Q&A if there are any questions. I don't see any questions. If anyone wants to ask anything, you can raise your hand. If not, Soleil, I would just thank everyone for your time. If you still have questions and you haven't asked it yet, you can write it down in the Q&A.
Do you see one? It's in the chat instead of the Q&A, and the question is, can we get a PDF of the slides?
I don't see why not. We can provide a PDF of this. I can provide a PDF of my slides for sure. But if there's anything else, you can feel free to contact me at lucascastro@bcsoccer.net, and I will pass it on to Chris. Let me just stop sharing my screen. Have I freed up the screen?
Yeah, looks good, Lucas. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear okay. Let me
Great.
just see here. Okay, you can go ahead. I'll try to answer Stu in the chat directly.
Okay, hi all. Thanks very much for making the time this afternoon. Obviously, Lucas was here to present some information on club licensing, and I'm here just to give a brief update and overview of the skills license. For today, going to give some introductions for those of you that don't know myself, as well as the staff that are working in this area in our soccer development department. Just a recap on a bit of the history to the skills license, where we are at in VC currently, and what we're working on. A brief overview of the technical criteria, quality assurance and resources, and the path we're looking to take there. And then lastly, next steps, so that you're aware on what to look out for, or where we will be communicating to the members, as well as those that are specifically working in the licensing system with skills license requirements. As I mentioned, my name is Chris Cerrone, Director of Soccer Development. Those that have worked with me in the membership have done so now for almost 10 years. And recently, refereeing has come under the Soccer Development Department in the last few years. So now our remit is to work with player, coach and referee. And a component of the player piece is the skills license item. We recently brought in Yasmin Alipur, our player development coordinator. So Yasmin is the designated staff in our department to work with the members and work with Canada Soccer in the skills license component, and has a real focus on the U13 and down age groups, which is also associated to the small-sided game formats as well. Just as a recap, there's documentation in detail on Canada Soccer's website, but those that you are familiar with the term skills license or skills centre, it's been a public program or designation, if you like, for a number of years, and it only really came into documentation and in front of the members and affiliated clubs around 2017, when Canada Soccer started to get more hands-on with their licensing program that Lucas mentioned. It focused on the learn to train stage within Canada Soccer's long-term player development model. As I said before, it's player focused. There are technical standards on paper that target the training environment, coaching standards, and philosophy. And at this stage, it was a document with standards and associated with club licensing. If a club applied for National Youth Club License, and those that are on the call, there are some individuals working in that world, there was a requirement to facilitate this skills centre, skills license concept. But to be totally transparent, there's been no on-site technical assessments from Canada Soccer. And so At this stage, it is being reviewed by Canada. So they are looking at this document that, as I said, is live on their website with the standards in place. They're reviewing that with us and other PSOs. We're also looking at what we're going to be doing. And as I mentioned, with Yasmin coming into our department, we've assessed it and reviewed that we need to have more of a role, even though it's the Canada Soccer Programme, to help facilitate this programme in BC. The three goals that I just wanted to draw attention to is it really is based on the philosophy of keeping more players involved, setting clear training guidelines, and trying to develop more players as well of quality. Where we're at in BC, in June 2023, we shared an information bulletin, one highlighting that we're going to focus more on that U10 to U13 age group, which is the learn to train stage. We're going to look at technical quality assurance and evaluations. And part of this process also was to try and connect the assessment piece to the BCSBL and National Youth Club licensed clubs, clubs that are aspiring to join the BCSBL and clubs that only wanted the skills license designation, which is an option as well. So just drawing out the key pieces from that bulletin, which hopefully many of you were familiar with when it was shared in June. But as I mentioned, with the current clubs participating in the BCSBL, we will be doing annual assessments on how and what they're doing at that U10 to U13 age group. So for those clubs already participating in the BCSBL, they are being reviewed by BC Soccer and with Canada Soccer on what they're doing at those BCSBL age groups, which is U14 to U18. So this is just an extension to do further assessments at the entry into the BCSBL, if you like, but that connected programming below it at U10 to U13. There are clubs that are aspiring to join the BCSBL and obtain the National Youth Club license. The previous process was Canada Soccer would work with those clubs in a paper submission, and Canada would sign off on what was submitted on paper to then join the BCSBL. The BC Soccer Board would approve participation. What we've added to this layer is the timelines are the same. The application timelines to acquire the National Youth Club license with Canada is still the same. But during that process, we are working on an overlapped approach of BC Soccer reviewing on site what clubs are doing at that U10 to U13 age group. So that is linked in with the skills license. It is also linked in to give us more assurance that clubs are providing that programming at the best of their abilities that makes them suitable to move into a BCSBL franchise if the paper process with Canada is confirmed, and then the on-site technical quality assurance with reviewing their game day environment and their session environment is reviewed by our staff, and there's evidence that they're meeting certain criteria. The last bucket that I mentioned of clubs would be those that don't aspire to obtain the National Youth Club license with Canada, don't aspire to participate in the BCSBL, but do want to run a U10 to U13 program within the skills license to the best of their abilities. And so we will be working with clubs in that bucket as well. So this was just to set the scene on the three types of clubs that this can apply to with the skills license criteria and programming for those ages. So where we're at now, specific to BC, is we are working with Canada Soccer on what the technical criteria looks like specifically in BC. So Canada will document their criteria, and then we'll work with them to align. But we also have the caveat of provincial realities that we want to make sure we recognise that are appropriate to what it looks like in BC with our landscape with members, affiliated club, and the technical standards that are currently in place. At the moment, we are piloting our technical quality assurance process with some local clubs, and that is part of our assessment piece that I mentioned before, with one of those buckets that those clubs that currently fit within. We are anticipating Canada Soccer to confirm their newly formed skills license concept later this year. We haven't got a confirmed date. They are also doing pilots themselves. We were told August was when they were looking to complete that. So really, to be totally transparent, we're trying to give you the realities of how we're working on technical criteria while we're doing piloting assessments, while we're working with Canada on their newly formed skills license concepts. We're confident that this will all align, and our aim from a provincial standpoint is by September 2024, we'll be able to communicate the new technical standards, communicate the new technical application and quality assurance process, and that will be specific to the 3 buckets of clubs: current BCSBL clubs, those who are aspiring, and those that just want to obtain the skills license. So some moving parts, and the clarity isn't there yet, but it's important for us to give you a snapshot of where we are at so that you can plan appropriately. What it will look like in a structured chart format: the skills license would be a designation. The assessment piece would be the technical policies that BC Soccer develop, and I'll speak more on that in future slides. The age group for the skills license is the U10 to U13 age group, which is learn to train stage in Canada Soccer, as mentioned. Again, just an example, Canada changed that stage from U12 to now U13, which reflected why we amended our 11v11 game format at U13 to 9v9, which was a big change last year. The playing environment is the inter-district leagues that are currently in place. Number of clubs is to be determined, and Yasmin will be our staff member leading that component. And just to give you an example of what we already have in place, and we're trying to replicate a lot of the structure, the system, the procedures that we have with the National Youth Club license is a designation. We assess in the BCSBL within the rules and regulations there. The age groups are U14 to U18. It's a provincial league, and there are 15 clubs in play, with Mike Salmon being the technical support staff member from our department. So as I highlighted, this is a little snapshot of what it would look like if we're fully up and running, and who the points are, what age groups this affects. So technical criteria. Examples that hopefully you're already familiar with if you're working in the technical world is we have our BC Soccer small-sided development policy. This small-sided development policy looks at game formats, provides some insight into player evaluations, and is our go-to document for U13s and down. So as Lucas mentioned, a requirement of being a member in good standing with BC Soccer is abiding by rules and regulations and policies. This is the big technical one that we have in place right now. We also have the coach certification requirement policy, which is targeting coaching standards and working with Canada with their Safe Sport roster. And the last policy that will be obviously applicable to the skills license and the detail there is the skills license technical policy. It's in development. We're going to be working with Canada Soccer as well as our Soccer Development Committee, other PSOs as well, to find out how they're putting this skills license concept in place in their province and with their realities. But this will be similar to the BCSBL rules and regulations, where there's a technical component in there. This will be the policy that we will quality assess against that clubs are delivering these items. Yet to be developed, but as I said, we're targeting September 2024, so that all this will be nice and public and clear and in front of yourselves to move forward on. What the quality assurance process looks like, there is a documentation review. We're aware that there might be some overlap with Canada Soccer requesting documentation, but just for our own evidence, we want to make sure that the areas we're focusing on from a provincial standpoint, we have your technical programming on paper. So that would be ideally information that you already have at hand. What does your programming look like? What age groups do you target? What's your curriculum, your training to game ratio, as well as your player identification processes and feedback to players and parents? How do you select players and create teams? So ideally, all that information is nice and clear on paper, and we check on that for alignment with Canada Soccer and BC Soccer technical standards. Again, that's a piece of evidence that on paper, the club look to do what they've said they're going to do. We want to have more assurance that on paper comes to life on field. And so we will be doing technical visits, as I mentioned before, looking at game day practice. We're still developing this, as I said, but examples would be a game model. What does the player and team and coaching behaviours look like within a game setting? Is there a developmental philosophy for those age groups in place? And then looking at the sessions, simplicity of field space, player to coach ratio. Is there a structured curriculum and session delivery to really make sure that, as I said before, what's on paper is being delivered in the game day experience, as well as the ongoing sessions and training environments. We do provide some technical resources, and we're building out these resources year by year. But ultimately, as we've gone through this pilot process, there might be some questions on, what does that look like? I.e., what should a curriculum look like? What should the player profile look like to help clubs make best decisions on player identification, selection, as well as feedback to players? We're not saying you have to adopt these processes, because you'll have your club vision, your club philosophy, and your own style and approach. But we felt it important that we provide some examples so clubs are aware of what it could look like to help build your own concepts within your club environment. So those were the items I just wanted to cover with the technical criteria, how we're building that out, the technical quality assurance, what we're looking to assess, and then how we're looking to support with certain resources. As a final piece with next steps, we are currently piloting assessments, and we're trying to work with the criteria that we're developing to see in what suits and what fits, as well as what areas we want to look at in that session and game environment. We are developing the technical policy that applies to the skills license age groups. We're consulting with Canada Soccer on what their documentation looks like, how we're going to work with them with what we submit to them as a assessment report or a form to Canada, so that they have their evidence on where clubs are at. And we are targeting September 2024 to hopefully have this all packaged and tidy, nice and completed and in front of the members and affiliated clubs, so that you're aware of the next steps and what you'll need to be doing if you are in one of those three buckets that I previously mentioned. Short and sharp from myself, but it was just an update to let you know where we're at. As I said, I'm Chris Cerrone. If you've already had interactions with me or know my email address, but if you do need to follow up with any questions you don't have now and want to have them specific with me, please feel free to email me. I'll just stop sharing the screen, and then I will see if there's any questions that I've missed and hand it back to Soleil as well. So I'm just checking the chat, Soleil, and Q&A. Don't see any questions or any hands raised.
Hey, Chris. Sorry, it's Freddie here. How's it going?
Hi, Freddie. How are you?
Hey, just real quick, just for confirmation. So
Yeah.
you're still waiting for CSA on more clarity on what the structure and the format will look like for Skill Center, and then hopefully have answers for us for fall September 24, where then we can either adapt or implement into our programming for months to come, I'm assuming.
Yeah, correct, Fred. So basically, their current public documentation is under review, and now I'm in some consultation meetings with them on that. So I'm aware that it may change. I don't know how much it will change, but we wanted to make sure that yourselves are aware that that is the process, and we're trying to build out a decent runway. If it does change dramatically, that we won't try and make any changes very quickly from our role with the clubs. We'll give a longer runway, but I just wanted to be real open there that there is some changes coming from Canada that we're anticipating that has a knock-on effect. All right.
Yeah, that would help. Yeah, I mean, from a principle standpoint, we've always been told that we're fine. However, from a structure standpoint and game formats and all that kind of stuff, I think that's where the confusion always comes in with what Skill Center is supposed to look like.
Yeah, no, I get it, Fred. There's the other piece I didn't mention for everyone on the call, and Freddie would be aware of this, is with Canada Soccer's grassroots standards. They are not necessarily a requirement through rules and regs or policy, but our small-sided development policy is, and there is some discrepancies with what's on paper there. So we're working with Canada on, are they going to make theirs mandated? Because they do allow for provincial realities to be amended from province to province. So I can appreciate we're trying to work on clarifying that better for everyone in BC. Thanks, Freddie. Anything else, Freddie, or all good?
No, good for me.
Okay.
Hi, Chris. Dave here.
Hi, Dave.
Quick question. I just moved here from Quebec, so I'm trying to figure out this whole BC landscape. Very, very different than over there. In terms of the Skill Center, so it's a separate application than the club licensing?
Very good question, Dave. There's discussions with Canada on what that looks like in that format. So that's not confirmed yet. Through National Youth Club license application, it highlights that you have to run a skills license. So if you apply there, then you do have to run it, and you'll go through that process with Canada Soccer. Regarding a separate individual skills license application, that is still with Canada and it comes into us as well. But as I mentioned with Freddie and the review of the skills license, an option to explore is embedding it into club licensing as a component of M1, M2, and we're exploring that with other provinces. So it's not confirmed, but it's a valid question.
Okay, thank you. And then and just for myself, in terms of applying for a skills center, I guess it's just status quo and wait for further information, or is there something I can do right now to get the process going?
I would go direct to Dave Nutt at Canada Soccer and ask Dave of the timelines, and then he'll advise from there.
Great, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Soleil, it's gone quiet for 20 seconds, so I'll pass it over to you. And if anyone has any questions or wants to take it directly to me, please feel free to email me.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Lucas. Found that very informative on my end, and I hope everyone else here did too. So thank you for tuning in. And as Chris mentioned, I'm going to speak on behalf of both Chris and Lucas here. I know that they are both happy to answer any questions that you think of after the fact as well. So if you do think of anything, feel free to send them an email. And if you need that contact information, you guys all should have received an email from me. That's how you got the link. So feel free to send an email to me or give our office a call. And if there's no more questions, then we'll end it there. Thank you all for tuning in.